All right, let's see how many people get into this one. I know a lot of people don't really like to talk about it, but I'm actually enjoying this series. As we're starting out this for the first video, I'm just wanting to let everybody know I'm reading off a script, so I'm going to be looking this way to read that as we go through the video. It's going to be structured in a specific way, and some of the templates may be the same, if not similar, to the other series that I'm working on. If that bothers you, I apologize. I'm going to try and work on making these a little more different or a little bit easier for me to want to edit them. Right now, I don't have the time, so I'm just doing what I can. That being said, we're going to start out with the intro to the video. This being Boruto, I would hope that you've already gone through Naruto Shippuden. Well, if you read the manga, so just Naruto, Boruto, Naruto Next Generations, and now have read up to chapter 35 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, because that is what we are getting into today. So we're breaking that down in the latest drop of this saga. So this chapter is titled Cute, which I'm going to start off right off the bat. I don't know. I read some translations and I read some officials. This official translation for Boruto, I don't know if they're actually talking like this, but there's a lot of modern language thrown into it, and I'm not entirely fond of it. Depending on how it is, it could make me drop the series just because of how the dialogue goes, so we'll see about that. But as of right now, it looks like the action and everything else is good enough, and the dialogue isn't too bad that I would want to do that. So we'll move on from here. But that aside, we're going to continue with the intro here. The chapter kicks off with a fresh arc vibe after the Mamushi chaos, mixing heartfelt character moments, sneaky betrayals, Shinju development, and some serious setup for pain ahead. So we're talking Jira and Hidari's bromance that they got going on in this chapter. We have Boruto cooking up risky plans with Sarada. We have Amado pulling strings like the puppet master he is behind the scenes. Like nobody's ever, I think, fully 100% trusted him, just kind of tolerated him to get through some of these arcs. But let's jump right into this. This chapter delivers on the slow burn tension while hyping what's next in the next couple of chapters. Now moving on to the pacing and structure of the chapter. The pacing here is solid and deliberate, more setup and character driven than all-out action, which fits the brief moment of peace tease before things kind of pop off. It opens with Jura and Hidari's chill conversation, shifts to Boruto and Sarada team up meeting plan, and then their adorable little banter that they have. Then kind of pivots hard to the Konoha, Amado, Kawaki subplot with the Koji takedown. No filler from what I've seen. A lot of the Boruto stuff has been no filler, even the Naruto Next Generation one. Up to this point, just the anime I think is the filler moments, but every scene builds the new arc around Sarada's situation and the growing threats. Ikemoto's art pops as usual. Clean panels, great expressions, sometimes seeming like he is feeling JoJo references with some of the poses that he uses, and also somewhat of an interesting cover. Always having some interesting covers, Ikemoto is. It's structured like a classic shonen bridge chapter, kind of humanizes the villains, strengthens the bonds on the good side, and drops a cliffhanger twist to keep you locked in for the next one to come. Not rushed, not so dragged out, kind of just feels like some quality world building chapter. Now moving to the character components of the chapter that we can draw, going with how the chapter was laid out, we're going to start with the Shinjus. We have Jura and Hidari as the first point. Some interesting developments. We have Jura is evolving into this curious, almost philosophical seeker of love and emotions. Love in quotation there, and emotions. He saved Hidari, and he stated that was because the thought of the world without him made him feel sadness. Hidari's straight up looking at just a cack book, dude. He's just looking at no pictures, no text, just pictures of cats. That's all he's looking at, because he said they're cute. Channeling apparently that's channeling Sasuke's obvious low key cat loving side. I saw that somewhere on the internet and was like, I didn't pick up on Sasuke's obvious low key cat loving side, but that just might be the development that Sakura wishes that Sasuke had showing up in Hidari. But, I digress. They're becoming more human is kind of what we're getting at here, bonding like a weird Naruto Sasuke parallel. Jorah's not mindless anymore. He's got layers, and it makes them way more compelling and dangerous as antagonists here. So moving on to the next section, we have the character components for Boruto and Sarada. Their interaction is wholesome gold. I really like how they're doing things, and it's obviously not the same as how it was because of the tension between a lot of the things that happened between the change of Boruto Next Generations 2 to Blue Vortex, and how that whole thing came about, not really being able to have an actual conversation with each other. But Boruto reassures her, kind of repeating her name, telling her not to lose hope, but eases her guilt over his eye, and they team up with a risky bait plan involving her. It shows growth, trust, and the deep Boruto-Sarada bond that I'm sure the community does or does not ship them. I don't know. I'm not a part of that community or of what people do there. Boruto's willing to play high-stakes games now, showing how much he's changed and adapted to post-time skip. He obviously has come a long way, but I also think with this plan, he also has a long way to go. Setups with the medals kind of help that, but we're going to see what happens with, as we talk about later, what happened with Koji, if that's going to hinder, which more likely it will, the plan that he's trying to come up with here. Moving on to the next set of character components we have Kawaki and Amado. Kawaki's still taking shortcuts, as always, like he usually does, fully relying on Amado's tech. For this one, we have the new scout toads for real-time parameter tweaks, because he wants to have full output, but obviously Amado doesn't want to do that because he needs to have some type of defense. Amado's scheming is shining here. He uses Inojin to bait Koji, traps him with Kawaki's shrunken in the while Kawaki's shrunken in the scroll. He hits the shutdown button and then kidnaps Koji. So Kawaki thinks he is so just like Koji thought, and is a good parallel here. Kawaki thinks that he's in control, but he's clearly a tool being played, and I've seen I've been saying that since day one. Kawaki's way too much of a conceited type person, always believing in himself whenever he can't, because he has somebody that literally has control over him. Just like, I don't think Jorah was his name, but the guy that had dominion basically over Kawaki before, he's basically doing the same thing, except Amado is almost making it seem like Kawaki has the power, even though Amado still does. And him relying on Amado really shows that really hasn't changed. He's only gotten more so as he's grown up. But this screams like future betrayal and or a backfire for Kawaki and the way that he wants to do things. So moving on to the last character components bit, we have the supporting cast here. Inojin gets used, so unknowingly helps the trap of Koji, who underestimates the risk despite prescience. So because he didn't see any prescience, he kind of lowered his guard, thinking that nothing would happen. And I think that there might be some type of blank spot when it comes to Amado and what Amado could do, because it didn't make any sense that nothing would happen with his prescience. And it would only make sense because something had happened with the creator. If the creator can do stuff and not be affected by his creations, then that would make sense as to why he didn't see anything with his prescience whenever Amado was using the attack to kidnap him. But we have those, and Ada might be watching some of this unfold. I think we didn't see, I don't think she's with Koji, but she was watching within the chapter what Jiraiya and Hidari were doing. All right, moving on to the story progression and lore components of the chapter. Story-wise, we're deep into the Sarada-focused arc. Boruto's plan is to use her as bait to infiltrate the Divine Tree hideout, dropping a traceable medal or metals that he uses, setting up a rescue/infiltration mission against Code, Jura, and Hidari. Code's still lurking around with abduction goals, as we saw in one of the recent chapters here. Koji's capture is a massive loss. It cuts off a key ally with prescience and intel, potentially dooming the plan and escalating Konoha's vulnerabilities already from the start before Boruto can even set anything into motion. So now we're going into some lore drops of the chapter here, more on Shinju love and humanity. Jorah's unexplained attachment to Hidari hints at a deeper Otsutsuki or divine tree connections and emotional growth from the hosts. So Sasuke's vibes strong in Hidari as an example. Amado's tech mastery expands. Remote shutdowns, parameter adjustments, summoning hacks. So that's reinforcing his end of the ninja era threat via science over chakra. Then we have prescience and toads getting highlighted. You have Koji's living ones versus now Amado's fake ones. So overall, it progresses the who's the real threat theme. Shinju are evolving, but Amado's machinations and manipulations might bring disaster as well in the future. All right, now to the final thoughts of the chapter we have here. This one, I think, was a strong 8 out of 10 setup chapter. Funny and interesting with the cute Shinju moments. I just personally don't like some of the modern language thrown in there, like I had mentioned before, but it also is tense with the Amado plot and exciting for the Boruto Sarada growth that we have there, just with their risky mission. I think this chapter humanizes the villains in a new way, while reminding us that Amado is probably public enemy number 1 long term still. Koji getting clapped hurts, and Boruto's plan likely feels that it might backfire spectacularly. Might have already with Koji, but definitely and especially does without Koji. But that's what makes it a good chapter for the setups, and I will see what happens as the story progresses over the next couple of chapters here. Definitely next month we'll see what goes on. So we're building up to a big clashes, potential of Sarada power-ups or glasses upgrades to maybe help her with her eyes, as well as more chaos. So get your forks out, folks. This arc is somewhat of a feast here in more ways than one, depending on how you like to look at things. So what do you think? I think Amado might be somewhat of the final boss. Maybe he's not the actual final boss, but he's probably going to be up there with a lot of these creations that we're seeing as the story progresses that end up coming back to kind of bite us in the ass in some way. So drop any of those comments whenever you have the ability to down below. I want to keep going on these Boruto chapters, so I'll see you in the next drop. All right.